Hello and welcome to Back2Hoops. This is going to be a quick look video on hybrid defense or a 2-2 defense. That is one of the more common defenses used in the UK at the moment. Cool, let's get into it. So this is our terminology slide. Again, you can find this PowerPoint in the description down below so you can follow along at your own pace. So what is a hybrid defense? Well, a hybrid defense is simply one where players are asked to either mark zonally or one-to-one, and a different player on the pitch might be asked to do the other role. So you're looking at mashing a zone and one-to-one coverage together, okay, to make a hybrid. There are lots of different kinds of defense like this, and you can have any number of people playing zone or any number of people playing one-to-one. What makes a 2-2 different is, quite simply, there are two people playing zone and two people playing man coverage. And we're going to go into how we set that up and what that kind of looks like for us. So, a very quick overview of the roles we've got on pitch. We've got two chasers who, at the top of this, are playing man coverage on the ball. And we call those the point and the half. Behind them, we have our beaters, who are playing within a pivot. And at the back, we have our keeper and our third chaser playing a zone around the base of the hoops. Okay, so it's going one-to-one coverage, man coverage, beaters, zone at the base. Okay, that's how a 2-2 is set up. Now, the exact spacing and position of this you can change depending on the kind of tempo or style you want to base this off, but this is the baseline. Okay, this is the starting formation for most teams who play this kind of defense in the UK at the moment. In terms of roles, the two players at the top, as I said, are playing man coverage. The pink circle shows their sort of zone of influence. The yellow arrows show where their primary focus is. So as you can see, we've got two players whose primary focus is to man cover the person with the ball, who we're assuming is this player here. Okay, so we have our point defender, who's set up slightly closer. Their primary and basically sole role is to stop this person going this way. Set slightly further back, we have our help defender, who we call the half, whose, again, primary focus is on this carrier. And as a pair, they're trying to make sure that if this chaser wants to go towards the goal, they have to go through both. Where this is slightly different in the role of the half is their other priority is if this player here on the right gets the ball, they're going to shift across and they're going to become the new point defender. And the previous point defender is going to drop back slightly and take a mirrored position as the new half. Okay, so point is the one closest to the ball. Half is the one set slightly further back as a help defender and also covering any left to right or right to left pass. They need to work as a pair. They need to communicate and make sure they're in the right space in case that they're close enough to help. If they get too far apart, they're going to get isolated. It's going to be a one-on-one attempt and the attacker should win. Okay. Importantly, in this, they're not trying to engage particularly aggressively. Okay, they should be quite happy to play hands-up defense, shadowing and just following the ball, waiting for the opposition to commit. Okay, so you don't need to dive in and try and make a massive hit. Okay, you don't need to do that until the offensive team decides to commit and make a drive. Because if you try and go too early, the rest of your team's not going to be ready and you're going to create space behind you. The third chaser, okay, we've got down here, they are zonally marking the hoop. So they're going to start in front of this hoop on the right-hand side in this setup to block a shot. That's their primary focus to start with. The other player they have to be kind of aware of and why it's more of a zone than just manning the hoop is this deeper receiver. In this situation, we're assuming that this receiver is the better of the two. Okay, so they start in front of the hoop, but they're also going to start to hedge towards this to see if this person gets the ball, which we think is the more likely of the two options down deep, they can go out and meet them. If it turns out the opposition is not particularly shoot heavy, then this chaser can start to move off the hoop and start taking up the middle of this kind of pink space. Okay, and that means they've got a much better chance of getting an intercept if the pass goes here. They don't want to go all the way up and mark tightly, because if they do that, they're leaving too much space in behind for a fast cut. Okay, so it's starting on hoop, and you might drift out to about where I am here in the middle of this circle as a maximum distance away, unless this person actually gets the ball, at which point they then become a point, as we're going to go on to in a sec. Okay, this is the role that's going to change probably the most within a game once you kind of worked out what your opposition is doing. On the other side of the hoops, you've got the keeper. They're responsible for the other two hoops. Okay, so the middle hoop and in this case, the left hoop. They've got to be ready to step up and commit to a contact if a drive does happen to help out. But they've also got to be aware of this receiver. We're assuming in this one that this is the weaker receiver. This person is less likely to get the ball. And that means that the keeper can concentrate on their other responsibilities that little bit more. Okay. If these two receivers swap and the defense has time, then those two players should probably also swap. Okay. This is a longer pass. It should give the keeper enough time to go out, and it's less likely to happen. Okay. But their primary focus is stopping a ball going into these two hoops or making a stop higher up the pitch. Okay. They need to be able to trust their hoop zone defender to cover this hoop because they are not responsible for this right-hand side. Okay. That is this player's job. Cool. And then we've got our beaters. Our beaters are working in a pivot. Okay, so if one is being pressured, they'll drop back and the other one will step up, and vice versa if it swaps over, moving back and forth, trying to make sure that their zone of influence is at the mark that they started out on. Okay, they don't want to get drawn too far apart because that creates a space in the middle to be exploited. Okay, and they don't want to drop too deep or both push up too high. They want to keep that rough pressure in that middle of the pitch. Okay, in the middle of wherever they've set their zone up to be. They need to work as a pair, and they need to be ready and looking to create a turnover. So if there is a loopy pass over down deep here, we can turn the ball over here really quickly because the beater can step out and press out. Or if they're dawdling up here and their beater's wandered off, this player can go push up as well. Okay, so they're constantly looking back and forth, waiting for its opportunity to exploit and then press out. If the ball does go deep, essentially the formation just changes and the player roles change slightly. So whichever two players end up closest to the ball after the pass, in this case we're assuming it's gone here, the two closest players, they then become the point and a half and they work out between them. The two other players who are at the back of the play, if we now consider the ball down here, they then mark in a zone this space, okay? So where these other two players might crash into. So the two players closest to the ball push out, they become point and a half, the other two players drop back. And if it flipped to the other side, it would be the same way. The two closest players are point and a half, the two furthest away zone the other part of the pitch. If the player wants to throw it to a reset, that's fine. Go for it, but we're just making sure that this space in the pitch is defended, this space is covered, because that's the most likely place to concede a goal. So this is kind of a snapshot of what this kind of looks like in practice on pitch to make it a bit easier. In our deep dive video, you'll be able to see an actual video of this, but I've just paused and taken a screenshot for now. So we've got our 2, 2, 2, and you can see where they're kind of focused. So we've got our point defender marking the carrier. We've got our half, just slightly further back and inside a bit, who is covering as a secondary on this point, on this carrier, and also hedging for this square pass. So if the ball does go here, in this case, Chloe can step out and cover, and they'll drop back in. Okay, we've got our two beaters ready. They're looking to trade in exchange, okay, winning their fights, trusting the rest of the team around them to hold up any no bludger situation that might happen, and then they'll press out. And you've got the back two, you've got a keeper and a chaser zoning the back two passes. So you've got Amber here, who's going to be covering this hoop, and also this this receiver who might be running around. And the keeper, Tommy, here is covering these two hoops on this side and any player that cuts over on here. Okay, so again, beaters hold the position, try and win their exchange, or tap back in if they lose, and then we can press out. Okay, that's the general gist. If you want to play this more aggressively, you can basically set it up slightly higher. So if you think you have the better players in each of the positions, or if you're losing by a lot and you need to claw back some goals, and it doesn't really matter if you lose by 10 or by 4, it doesn't matter, you're still losing. You're trying to create so you can push up higher. So here we have our point and our half basically at halfway, even before the keeper has got over halfway. We've got our beaters trying to pin the quaffle. So we've got Lucy here in line, and we've got Dan who's come all the way around trying to pin the quaffle carrier here. That basically means this carrier has one option and one option only, which is to chuck it long. Okay, because they can't run through these two point defenders and the beaters. They can't pass square because that beat is cut off. So the only real option is this pass to this chaser, which is covered by the keeper. They're looking for this. They know that's where the pass is going. They don't have to worry about the hoops. They know it's going here, so they can start to hedge that way. And that's what happens. So you force the pass early when the people who are receiving it aren't in a danger, and the rest of your team knows that it's going to come, so they can adapt to that. Once the turnover happens, they can flood forward and score. Conversely, you can play it way more conservatively if you're on a narrow lead, or if this is just a tactic if you think actually this game's going to be really, really close, or you might even be the slightly worse team and you just want to be conservative and not expose yourselves. You can play what is called a cavalry wall, where the 2-2 is set much, much deeper. We have our players, our points, basically on the keeper zone line. We have our hoop zone and our keeper on the hoops. And we've got our 2 beaters in essentially their most secure position right based on the hoops. So if they do get beat out, they can tap back in. And all these 2 chasers are going to do is trail left and right, following the quaffle round, keeping their bodies between it, hands up defense, making the offense do something. And in the video, we show this possession for white lasts about 3 minutes. And it doesn't come to anything because it's just being zoned round and round and round. Okay. Eventually, that's going to cause the opposition to get frustrated and try and force something, at which point Blues can try and capitalize, or it's going to get a delay of game penalty and you'll get a turnover. Okay, so they've dropped it right back, trying to put as maximum pressure on the hoops, make the offense overcommit, and then exploit afterwards. In terms of strengths and weaknesses, so the strengths, I think, are pretty straightforward. This is very good against a head-on attack. Right, you're very good at covering the drive. You've got multiple people in the way, and you're very good at stopping a shot because you've got multiple bodies on the hoops whose job it is to stop that. Okay, it does allow you to press out quite quickly because your beaters can recover and then push if they exchange or trade. And if they win the fight, then you're golden. And even if they lose, they can recover very quickly because they're based onto their hoops and it's nearer them. Okay, it also covers our 3 chasers relatively well. These 3 players are going to be relatively well marshaled. You can't cover everybody, as we've said before, unless you're playing a full man coverage, at which point you're leaving your hoops open. But we're expecting this player to not get the ball as often. Okay, so that's it strong. It's good against shooting, it's good against driving, and it covers people pretty well. The weaknesses of this, however, is ball speed, as it often is for defenses. Right? If the players can get the ball around this formation quickly and each player look like they're a threat trying to score, that can cause issues. Because if I think every one of these players is in a dangerous position when they get it, I have to do something about it. I have to go and cover it in some way. And that starts to pick holes in it, especially if you can pass the ball around quickly, because that means you might be able to pass it quicker than I can react as the defender. And that's when I start getting turned. That's when the spaces start to get created. The other big weakness of this formation is this angle here. If I can get the quaffle to this position here, that naturally draws my keeper out, my places back down, and I can get into a very flat line, at which point any cut or any player running on a cut this angle hoop facing has a very strong chance of scoring because they get a lot of momentum. There's a lot of space they're not covering, and they can just run in and smash it over the top, smash it over the keeper into the goal. Okay, so this is the weak point of this formation. Okay, in line with the hoops, and then a 90-degree pass coming in like this. A 90-degree runner getting it, rather, sorry. Okay. How I drill this and why I'd pick it. So I would pick this in the UK at the moment. It's the defense my teams all play at the moment, or some variation of, because the UK is very drive heavy and it's still relatively shoot heavy. It's not that pass heavy in terms of ball speed. There are a couple of teams who are very good at it, but in general, that is a weaker element of the UK game. So this tactic, this defense works really well for that. In terms of drilling it, I'd start by having all my chasers in the position I want them in, and just start with offense passing the ball left and right at the top of the shape and getting my point and half used to moving and dropping back and pushing up. Once they've got that, which is the most important bit, I think, because that's the bit that's going to come into contact with the defense, with the offense rather, sorry, the most, then I can start building, pushing the ball long and deep, and how do my back 2 push out, and how do I cover the space in between. Then we can start adding in beaters. Where do they go if they win the fight? Where do all my chasers go? Where do I go if they lose the fight? Where do all my chasers go? And how do I press out and exploit this to the best of my ability? Once you've got that, you can build up the speed. You can start playing in half-court seeing and in full games. And just seeing if people are actually doing this when the chips are down, when it's actually game time. There's no point having a tactic or a drill that you don't then apply, okay? If you are a UK team, I really strongly recommend trying this out. Even if it's not the defense you decide to ultimately go with, knowing how it works is really important because you will face this again in your opposition, okay? So having a plan is also really important, okay? That's why I'm going to leave it there. As I say, there's a deep dive video with myself, Jay, and Dan that you can find in the description down below and on our YouTube channel. If you like this, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel. If you have any feedback that you'd like to give or any content you'd like us to see make, email us at back2hoops@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and I will see you all soon.